Right then, let's head over to the rooftop of Europe, where the mighty Alps carve up countries and cultures like a massive, jagged fence. Up there, in the thin air and the big silences, lives a true symbol of wild grit and ancient strength. This isn't some shy, ghostly creature. This is a proper king, dressed in a coat the colour of rock and earth. And on his head, he wears a crown not made of gold or jewels, but of thick, hard keratin, curved back with pure, raw arrogance. This, mate, is the Alpine Ibex, Capra Ibex. But its story isn't just a simple yarn about adapting to a tough gig. It's also a tragedy about how stupid humans can be. A tale of being hunted to the very edge of oblivion. And then, against all odds, one of the greatest comeback stories in the history of conservation. To understand the Ibex, you can't just look at its magic feet. You've got to look at its long, complicated history with us mob, a relationship that damn well nearly wiped it off the planet for good. So let's get stuck into the life of the King of the Alps, from his Ice Age heritage, through the darkest nights of being hunted down, to the spectacular revival that put him back on his mountain throne. like its distant cousin over in North America. The Ibex's story kicks off back in the Pleistocene, but its path took a different turn. The Ibex is a true blue member of the Capra family, the proper goat mob, which evolved and spread right across the mountains of Eurasia. While some of its relatives headed for the Middle East or the Himalayas, one branch found its destiny in Europe, amongst the young, sharp mountain ranges freshly freed from their icy blanket. When the Ice Age packed it in and cleared out of Europe, the Alps were revealed in all their brutal glory. Meltwater had carved out deep valleys, sheer granite and limestone cliffs, and lush green meadows high up. Right at the feet of the remaining glaciers. This was the stage nature had set for the birth of a survival specialist. The job description was clear. You had to be a brilliant climber so you didn't fall off the planet. You had to find tucker on ridiculously steep slopes. And you had to be tough enough to handle long, savage winters with heavy snow and bone-chilling winds. The Ibex's ancestors, with the genetics of a genuine mountain goat, were tailor-made for the challenge. They didn't need to evolve into climbers. They were already born with the right stuff. Natural selection in the Alps simply sharpened those skills to a razor's edge. The pressure to survive shaped the Ibex into a creature perfectly in tune with its world. Every bit of it has a job to do. The ultimate camo gear. Unlike the North American mountain goat, which needs a white coat to blend in with the snow, The Ibex's traditional enemies were lynx, wolves and bears lurking amongst the rocky outcrops. So, its coat evolved to be a brownish-grey colour, the perfect camouflage. It helps them blend in so well with the rocks and dirt that a stationary ibex can become almost invisible. Hooves and balance. Like any top-tier climber, the Ibex has those classic split hooves with soft, grippy pads and hard outer rims. They have an incredible sense of balance, able to stand and move on ledges so narrow a human would need ropes and a whole lot of courage. the crown of power. Those massive horns. The most striking and different thing about the ibex is the massive set of horns on the males. These aren't really for fighting off predators. Instead, they're a status symbol, a sign of good health. And the main tool used in the blokes' brawls to win the right to mate. Once a year, in autumn, the big males get into massive blue. They'll rear up on their back legs and come crashing down on each other, the thwack of horn on horn echoing through the valleys. The bigger and stronger the horns, the better the chance a male has of winning, holding on to his mob of females and passing on his top shelf genes. A male ibex's horns are basically his life story, with each ring marking another year on the clock. This is where the ibex's story takes a dark and tragic turn, all because humans became its worst enemy. Through the Middle Ages and the Renaissance, a wave of superstition washed over Europe. And the poor old ibex was right in the firing line. People got it in their heads that every single part of an ibex was a magic potion, able to cure any disease and bring good luck. The horns, ground into a powder to fix impotence. The blood, meant to be a cure for kidney stones. The bones, a small cross-shaped bone near its heart was worn as a lucky charm to ward off accidents. Bezoar stones, lumps from their stomach, were thought to be the most powerful antidote to poison. This madness turned the ibex from a respected mountain creature into a walking treasure chest. They were hunted down, brutally and relentlessly. With guns, traps, and non-stop pursuit, their numbers crashed. After being found all across the Alps, they were completely knocked off in Switzerland, Germany, Austria, and France. By the early 19th century, the tragedy was almost complete. The Alpine Ibex had been wiped from the wild. Except for one single, surviving population of less than 100 animals, which had miraculously clung on in a remote part of what is now Gran Paradiso in Italy. The king of the Alps was on his last legs. just when it looked like it was all over, a glimmer of hope appeared. In 1856, King Victor Emmanuel II of Italy, seeing that this iconic animal was about to be gone forever, declared the last ibex population in Gran Paradiso to be a protected royal possession. He hired his own mob of rangers to patrol the area and keep poachers out. Now the king probably just wanted to keep the last ones for his own private hunting ground, but fair play to him. His actions accidentally saved the entire species. That private reserve eventually became the Gran Paradiso National Park in 1922, Italy's very first. From that tiny core group of survivors, one of history's greatest conservation success stories began. Scientists and conservationists carefully trapped healthy ibex from Gran Paradiso and trucked them to other parts of the Alps where they used to live. In 1911, the first ibex were reintroduced to Switzerland. Austria, France, Germany and Slovenia followed. Every reintroduction was a gamble, but thanks to a massive effort, new populations started to take hold and grow. The king was returning to his kingdom, not by the force of his horns, but with the help of the very species that had pushed him to the brink. Today, the Alpine Ibex is back. From less than 100, its population has roared back to over 50,000, living wild and free across the Alpine nations. It's become a symbol not just of the wild, but of hope and a job well done in conservation. They carry on with their lives on the cliffs, just as they did thousands of years ago. And they've even shown some incredible new tricks, adapting to the modern world. Photos of ibex scaling the near vertical walls of hydroelectric dams just to get a good lick of salt have become famous around the world. Absolute legends. But the fight isn't over. The modern king faces new challenges, climate change, the big one, shorter winters and hotter summers are changing the plant life. They rely on tourism. More and more people in their habitat can cause stress and disrupt their natural behavior. Genetic diversity. Because the entire population came from that one small group in Gran Paradiso, there's a genetic bottleneck which could make them more vulnerable to diseases down the track. Conclusion. The story of the Alpine Ibex is a real rollercoaster, mate. It's proof that a creature can be perfectly shaped by nature for its home, but also how fragile it can be in the face of human ignorance and greed. Most of all, the comeback of the Ibex is a powerful reminder that extinction isn't always the end of the line. When we put our minds to it, we can fix our past mistakes and give back to nature what we took. The King of the Alps didn't just survive, he returned to rule, a permanent and powerful symbol of the wild's incredible will to live.